I'm so glad that you can all be here with Austin360 Radio and just take a few minutes to talk about something that is so important to all of us. So welcome Lauren Gold, Congressman Lloyd Doggett, and Nakia. I'm so excited that you all could join today and talk to me about this. I'm Amy Edwards. And so I'm going to give you guys just a moment to each introduce yourselves. We'll start with you, Nakia, and just kind of say what your role has been in as far as working toward activism with or actual, work towards funding our venues and getting relief for so many people that are struggling right now.
Sure. My name is Nakia. I am the co-founder and president of Austin, Texas Musicians. It's a 501c4 nonprofit, and we formed back in April of 2019. And we're really instrumental in helping to create the Live Music Fund, and also moving into this year. We're beginning to focus at the beginning of the year on making sure that we had musicians on our Musicians Advisory Panel that were representative across all of Austin's voting districts outside of Austin, because many musicians live outside of Austin, but also that we had a lot of different folks from different musical genres and a very diverse background of people. And then the pandemic happened, South by was canceled, obviously, and all of our focus shifted to being a resource for our music community and being a bridge of information. And we worked really hard with City Council and staff to help them create the Austin Music Disaster Relief Fund, which was a grant that they used CARES money from the federal government to put into musicians, individual musicians' hands. And then we began to help them to formulate some recommendations around the same thing for a music venue preservation fund, which turned into the SAVES resolution that created that music venue preservation fund that just happened this last week. And my understanding is the staff is getting ready to roll that program out ASAP.
That is so exciting. And Congressman Doggett, maybe you can take it from there and just tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, actually, most of my work has been on an individual basis, working with Nakia, with Dave Madden, and other musicians, because our musicians, of course, first had the blow of the unfortunate but necessary cancellation of South by, even before we felt the full brunt of the pandemic here. But left without unemployment compensation because they're excluded from the unemployment system as gig workers. They're not the only folks, but a big chunk of people. And those who, music was their heart, their love, but they had a daytime job too, maybe several daytime jobs. We work with them to try to get that information to the Texas Workforce Commission, so they could receive some compensation, and then later work with people so that the one-time stimulus or relief check, that they would get that. And we, of course, like the individuals, just encountered a world of trouble because the Texas Workforce Commission was not prepared for what was happening here. They didn't add people on early enough. The governor didn't back them up the way we needed. And so, and we're still handling some of those cases, as well as some of the people who never got their $1,200 relief check. In the course of working with Nakia and Dave and others in the music industry, this issue kept growing about, yeah, we've got to help our individual musicians, but if there's not any place left to play, and we know over the last few years we've been losing some of the most iconic venues in the city. If there's not a venue, then how are we going to perform once we get out of this pandemic? Mm-hmm. And I know back in the summer, even the Austin Chamber of Commerce put out a study that if we don't get substantial relief for venues by Halloween, it'll be a ghost town for venues. And we are approaching Halloween now. The decorations are already up, and we're approaching it without significant relief. At the federal level, there was the Save Our Stages bill that was introduced, including with lead sponsors who are Republicans, and it raised a lot of hope that we might have a bipartisan solution to this. Unfortunately, we took all of their bill, a bill that I was a co-sponsor of also, the Save Our Stages measure we put it into a new piece of legislation that the House approved last week, but all the Republicans voted against it. And President Trump called off all negotiations. And so, you know, it's a real problem if you do what the other side said they wanted and then they exclude it. I know there's a big debate we'll probably talk about whether the city has done enough to save venues. But as Nakia was just pointing out, the reason the city could do anything is that they had federal support through the CARES Act. And the biggest issue, much bigger even than Save Our Stages, in the negotiations that have gone on there, is the refusal of the Trump administration and Senator McConnell as his supplicant to support any assistance for state and local governments. McConnell said he just assumed the states go bankrupt. If we are to get the help that we need here, it's more than Save Our Stages. We need the city to be able to get more dollars so they can adjust it, whether it's affordable housing or whatever. And then finally, and I know I've covered a lot here, but the other issue that I've worked with Nakia on before the pandemic, that is a really important issue going forward that we should explore some more, is healthcare. So many folks struggling, counting on HAM, counting on the Affordable Care Act to cover them at a time of pandemic. You really want to have healthcare coverage. And then those folks, whether they are in music or related field, who lose their job are often losing their health insurance. So that's a big other issue. We had money in this same bill that has Save Our Stages. We had money for healthcare, and none of that is going forward as of our discussion today.
Yeah, I know it's very heartbreaking and frustrating on so many levels. And especially you brought up the city part, because I know that there was money earmarked for venues from the city, and then unfortunately, it took a really long time for some of those venues to get their funding. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, because at least we have seen some of that money come through from the CARES Act. It just took longer than we expected. And I think some of those venues were really struggling along. So Lauren, would you introduce yourself and maybe say how you've been involved in this?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you guys so much for being here and having this discussion. I'm honored to be a part of it. My name is Lauren Gould. I am a full-time musician and native Austinite, and I don't have an official title as it relates to music advocacy, but I've been really involved in the scene kind of off and on for many years. And I worked with Nakia years ago before when we were working with the city to try to make sure we had musicians on the music commission, etc. So, and then I was in grad school and I graduated during the pandemic and found myself with some more time on my hands, thankfully, and wanted to get involved with this issue as much as I possibly could. So I've been trying to just learn as much as I can and be a conduit for information for the music community. And because I know a lot of my colleagues aren't aware of these issues, I think a lot of people they get so busy and they have blinders on and they're just working on their careers and working on just surviving, and they need information. So I've been just trying to talk to as many people as I can and just share that information with the community, and also kind of put together some research so that people can write into city council and the mayor with and city manager with some kind of facts, armed with some facts, so that they can make a more detailed argument for our case.
I completely agree with that, because like Congressman Doggett said, and Nakia, there's so many facets to this, and anytime you've got bills and things like that, it can get very confusing. And artists are trying to make a living and get by day to day, and I think it's really important for us to share the message as clearly as possible and clear ways that people can take action and get involved. And so back to Nakia and Congressman Doggett, what would you say are some practical ways that people can help and take action right now?
Well, from a from my perspective, we're, as Congressman Doggett said, we're stuck until they agree to work with us. So the only thing we can do as individuals right now are two things. Number one is vote them out of office. Number two is to start lobbying them with, social media messages, letters, calls, demanding that they do something about that. I mean, what to me is so crazy in all of this is that, we have the means available, and we have, millions of Americans who are sick, millions of Americans who are out of work, and they could absolutely make just one decision to help everybody, and they're holding that against us as some form of leverage, and it's frankly quite disgusting. So what Austin, Texas Musicians has been working on for the last month or so is registering people to vote. We have registered probably close to 1,000 people in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
Just getting, posting up musicians who are voter deputy registrars, registering them to vote. And now what we're doing is focusing on reminding people that it's so important to vote. And we're partnering with the Women League of Voters to get them the information about the candidates. There's plenty of them out there, and making sure that they know where they stand on these issues. It's so important that everybody vote. And guess what? Texas early voting starts October 13th.
That's right.
And you should also keep that in mind when it's time to vote for Governor Greg Abbott again, because Governor Greg Abbott is sitting on a ton of federal relief money that he has refused to give out. And he has more music venue closures in his state than any other state in the country.
Wow.
May I just touch, because that last point is really an important one, and Nakia has focused on it, and I know Lauren's familiar with this too. We have sent in federal dollars money to the city, but the big money went to the state. Now, I think there were many things that the governor, we were counting on to do with the state, like help smaller counties, like get money to our public schools, which he did not do in an adequate way. But he has about half of the money we sent him, over $6 billion there at the governor's office. And it all has to be spent by the end of this month. So I don't quite understand why he has not utilized some of the resources he has to supplement in some way and help preserve an industry. I mean, he's got an office there that's supportive. He's got, and I know, the love of music in Texas is not limited to one political party. We could get some help there if he wanted to use it. On the broader question, and that really is the big issue here today as we approach an election. If you can't change the law, if you can't get help, get rid of the lawmakers. Put in some new ones that'll do the job. It's like if you've got an act that's just not delivering any audiences,
right?
Something different.
Right.
And in this case, I think first and foremost, we've got to vote safely. I've been a big advocate of vote by mail. I am sending my own ballot in by mail today. But there are many people who are not 65 or over who don't think of themselves as disabled, but maybe because of diabetes, weight, having been treated for any number of diseases, they qualify as disabled because they might have a physical condition that would be impaired at the polls. At least they have the right to make a decision about that. You can go to my website on the Vote Safely section and find out about your right to vote by mail. It's so easy. It's a really long ballot when it comes home that you've got time and privacy to make your decision. You can drop that ballot off then at the tax office on Airport Boulevard, but I'm mailing mine in because I don't think even Donald Trump can stop my ballot over what is almost a month to get back to the election office here. And then, as Nakia just said, for anyone who doesn't want to vote by mail, you can keep doing that. But if you don't want to vote by mail, come Tuesday, this Tuesday, for right up until the Friday before November 3rd, you have an extended right to vote by mail, to vote early. And you can vote anywhere in the county. You don't have to vote near where you live. There are a wide number of sites. Some of them are open long hours. It's called No Excuses Voting, and you really have to kind of come up to think of an excuse why in that long period of time, if you're a musician whose future is on the line, whose health is on the line.
And to be clear, it is.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And it's on the ballot more than the names of the people.
Yep.
And so it's really important to go early, not to wait until election day, but to get your vote in and say, I'm the first kid on my block to vote Donald Trump and the people that have been blocking us out of office. And that's what we need more of. And thanks for getting all those folks registered, whether it's vote by mail, early voting, or those who just insist and love long lines on election day. Go vote and vote out the folks that won't help.
Absolutely. I think that's the crucial takeaway today. So I want to thank you all for being here today. And is there anybody that needs to add anything before we go?
I'll just say this, Lauren and I work together on some of this stuff. We know that the city is struggling to come up with ways that they can help music even more. They really are depending on, they've indicated to us that as soon as they get more federal CARES money, that they absolutely want to help more businesses and want to help more musicians. And I would just encourage the city to continue to look everywhere they can for the money to help musicians. And I think that during the pandemic, while we're figuring all of this stuff out, is the time right now to be laying the groundwork, not to completely tear down the music industry that we've built here, but to figure out ways that we can supplement it and lift it up.
Make it better. Yeah.
And make it better, and doing things the right way in an equitable way, both for the way that we pay artists and work with artists, but also how we can make sure that our underserved and underrepresented communities, especially our musicians of color, have more opportunities. And I do think that we need to start looking at ways that when corporations are moving to Austin, that they can help to put money back into our music ecosystem, that when large corporate big festivals are putting on festivals in Austin, that a percentage of that money can go back into our community, especially our communities of color, who really, when we're talking about healthcare, that's one of the things we're focused on at Austin, Texas Musicians right now, is voting and making sure that all of our musicians that are eligible know that they're eligible for HAM and that they can get access to the Affordable Care Act, and in some cases have their premiums paid for through programs that HAM can provide. And we know just this past week that we've heard musicians of color who've said, I didn't even know HAM was a thing.
Wow.
I'd never heard of it before. So we are helping them to get the word out to as many musicians as possible. So if you're listening to this, even if you're not a Black or brown musician, you probably know one. Ask them, do you know what HAM is? Would you like to go to myham.org, find out about it? It's not a healthcare provider. They're not an insurance provider. They're going to navigate you to help you find healthcare, to help you find insurance, those things. And they're so great. In fact, our executive director would be here today speaking with us, but he's having a surgery in Dallas that his HAM helped him get access to insurance to cover the cost of that. Wow. So it's a super important thing.
That is just such an important point. And I've already got on the schedule for just after the election. Kia and I did one of these before, a gathering with HAM, because we're going to have HAM and foundation communities in November announcing the next period for enrollment in the Affordable Care Act for next year. There's some people not only don't know about HAM, but think the Affordable Care Act has already been abolished by Trump. Well, it hasn't. He's trying hard, but he hasn't succeeded. And there's an opportunity to sign up again and have that coverage that you certainly want. In addition to the normal possibility of an accident or a dread disease, we've got a pandemic. The cost of care is significant. We need people involved. And then finally, I would just add in thanking Lauren, you and Kia and Dave and everyone who's working so hard on this, we need to end on a note of hope. It's been it's the worst year ever. And the crazy things that have gone on in Washington and from the governor's office interfering are enough to cause stress for anybody. But I am hopeful that the very kind of effort you're talking about of getting so many people signed up to vote, so many people engaged that may have thought that the political process was the last thing they needed to be concerned with in their lives, that we will make a difference, and we have a chance to begin a new year, not only with a new president, to be rid of some of the congressional enablers and state enablers that have helped him in the past, but to really look not only how we build our music industry and reach out to include all of our neighbors, particularly people of color, but how we build a better America and learn from this tragedy and move forward. So we can do it. And it's your efforts, just like the word you're spreading today, Amy, is helping us engage more people. Just don't leave any musician behind when it comes to participating in this election.
That is right. And that is right.
Thank
And
you.
if we want to still be the live music capital in the world, in Austin, if we want to, brag about that title, then we've got to put our money where our mouth is, for sure. So
Right.
A quick shout out to Dave Madden, who is not here with us today, but he
I know.
helped assemble this group. And so thank you to Dave Madden, and thank you each of you so much, to Lauren, to Congressman Doggett, and to Nakia. Really appreciate it. I'm going to put all your contacts here with this, whether it's via podcast or on our social medias. And I just want to say thank you again to each of you for your efforts and for taking the time to share this today.
You bet. Thank you for having us.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you guys, so much.